Welcome to this presentation. We're going to talk about chasing unicorns, a lovable security story.
So that was the other way, yeah. First of all, hi, I'm Karim El-Melhaoui. I'm from O3 Cyber. I do cloud and platform security. And with me I have my colleague.
Also from O3 Cyber, my name is Bendik, and let's just dive straight into it. I guess I was going to say stating the obvious, but we got a nice presentation about cats, so just a disclaimer, this is not about some real unicorn. But in our case, it's companies that are, or startup companies that are valued at over $1 billion USD, and is privately owned and not listed on the share market. So in this context, we have these companies that are growing at an extreme speed, and as you all know, in cloud security, I guess that speed is, it would be argued to say that it's that speed is the enemy of security. And our research here, and we're going to showcase a bit how these billion-dollar valuations not necessarily mean that you're secure and can't be found some small minor misconfigurations. But then also that these minor misconfigurations not necessarily has minor consequences. So setting the story, with those hyper-growth markets, we have huge companies that are growing extremely fast, and obviously security is not their number one priority. Their number one priority is, of course, to capture the market and more or less surviving these days with AI. And I think just to touch upon the evolution of engineering, I believe it was Facebook coming up with move fast and break things, then it was kind of move fast and fix things. And I would argue myself that at least during 2025, we saw this shift into vibe coding, a vibe coding area. I guess you've all been there. We deploy some stuff with AI, and it actually works either at the first iteration or at least during a few iterations. And for many of developers, for perhaps the next big unicorn that's being created, then the vibe coding area will lead to a space where perhaps the only security measure is calling another AI agent to run some security checks or flaws, or perhaps you added security into your MD files when developing. But the issue is still that the AI hype train is going, but B2B customers are still demanding or at least expecting that security that they always had. But clearly, I think FOMO kind of wins, and a lot of these processes are naturally just skipped. Like for instance, when you're a one-man team starting a new SaaS application over the weekend, you don't have the time to have a whiteboard, draw up some authentication flow and understanding it completely. But that leads us to our talk touching upon SSO, which is a key feature. And the story is based on nOAuth, which was a misconfiguration that was discovered by Omer in the scope in 2023. And just to make it clear, it was a OIDC misconfiguration, but it is not a flaw in the underlying protocols, but how it's being used and how easy misconfiguration could lead to something catastrophic. So the general idea is that it's a SaaS where mutable claims are being used by the application to identify and map to the user within the system. So a very good example is from Microsoft, the Entra ID, the email attribute there, user.mail. It's mutable, so you can basically change the data, and it's unverified, so you can change your email to whatever domain. You don't need to verify that you actually own that domain. So that sets the stage for Karim, who's going to showcase a bit more in detail how it works.
Yeah, so that kind of gives away some of the research that they did in the nOAuth or article launched by Dscope. You typically look for SaaS services such as this, where you can sign up with Microsoft and then you choose to sign up as the actor at domain.com, and then you're granted access to a tenant. Now, what they mostly covered in their research was, what if I change my email from o3c.no to any other email, and in some cases they would get straight into the application. We decided to look a bit further into this research and see what are other mechanisms as well where it can be abused. So we looked at a bit more advanced workflow, where maybe you are able to sign up with the OAuth initially, but it doesn't work to impersonate another user. Or maybe they don't have the sign-in with Microsoft workflow at all. Maybe they have a relying party that you can federate with through your identity provider, meaning they offer you a way to do SSO, SAML basically, or OIDC. And what we looked for systematically were applications where we could set up federation, and some of these happen to be the unicorns where we found the flaw. And what we did after we set up the federation, so first we log in and provision a tenant, we then configure the federation, so we then say we're the actor at customerx.com, and we then try to we issue a token through our identity provider, which passes it to the relying party that is controlled by the SaaS application. And we got email is not verified in your tenant. Okay, so we're able to we're actually now passing the user claim, but are now returning that our email isn't verified in the tenant. And you've probably seen this SaaS applications where you need to say that a particular email domain is allowed. And I'm like, okay, I can just add the email domain to the allowed domains. No, you can't, because you need to add a DNS record. So we found that a lot of SaaS applications, although they do not properly validate the user.mail claim, they do prevent you from impersonating a domain you haven't proven you're in possession of. So it's a vulnerability, but you're not able to exploit it technically. But what if we look for, and this is the interesting thing, what if I try to spoof the company themselves? Could it be that they've hard-coded their own domain in the backend, so I don't need to verify that domain? And that happened to be the case in one of the cases we researched, where by just pretending like I'm the founder at the unicorn.ai, I were able to get into their tenant. And I got access to their internal tenant, which was quite interesting. And from their internal tenant, I learned there was another user account called admin at unicorn.ai. So what happens if I spoof the admin at unicorn.ai? Well, I got access to all of their enterprise customers, which happened to be a large portion of the Fortune 500 companies. And I'm still asking myself to this day, like, how did they get past the security teams, which kind of takes us back to the AI hype train is real. So it's like when every team in the organization is saying we need this AI service, they don't really go through the same security assessment that some of these Fortune 500 companies normally do before onboarding a new SaaS application. They just let it pass because we're too afraid to miss out on AI. So the result is, yeah, we got access to, new designs of unreleased products from some of the coolest tech companies in the world by doing this. So some of the lessons from this, never use the email claim for authorization because it can be spoofed by anyone. In terms of like your validation on your code, you shouldn't just have a verified domain, because that could eventually be bypassed if you find another vulnerability that it can be chained with. So you need to validate the claim to look for the tenant, the subject, and the actor. And of course, you could also have those other mitigations in place, such as being able to verify the domain. And Microsoft is also working where they will pass a claim where you can see whether the domain has been verified by them or not, which also helps trusting the email. But in general, you should trust more than one source. And I guess the rhetorical question for this talk is, are the fastest unicorns and vibe coding platforms mostly vibe coded? I think that's the question we're left with. And yeah, I guess our continued research into this will hopefully get an answer. That's all we had. Thank you.